外交部长王毅昨晚在北京同美国对外关系委员会视频交流。王毅表示，中国无意与美国竞争，突出对抗不应成为美对华政策导向。处理中美关系的正确思路应该是加强对话、深化合作、缩小分歧，避免对抗。中国所做的一切不是要取代谁、打败谁，希望美国客观认识和理性对待中国的发展。
王毅表示，中美把合作搞起来，就能让各种不可能成为可能，就能推动两国关系朝着健康和稳定的方向发展。就合作领域而言，最突出的是共同应对气候变化，最迫在眉睫的是合力防控疫情，最有潜力的是深化经贸交流。美国有种论调认为，中国不尊重美国了。事实上，最提倡相互尊重、平等相待的就是中国。我们强调平视，要的就是一个平等，既不是俯视，也不必仰视，不能谁块头大、拳头硬就说了算。我们不认为这个世界上有高人一等的国家，不接受热衷从实力出发，对其他国家发号施令。无论国家还是个人，都应该通过自己的努力去赢得尊重。大国更应该从自己做起，讲道义、守规矩，发挥榜样的力量。王毅表示，美方反复强调不要赌美国输，这其实反映了一种零和心态。中国从不对别国下赌注。世界是一个地球村，我们期待美国疫情防控尽快取得成效，经济实现全面复苏。中美一方的成功，并不意味着另外一方必须失败。世界容得下一个更好的中国和更好的美国。美方要保持信心，不必疑神疑鬼，动辄转嫁责任，抱怨他人，甚至要与世界第二大经济体脱钩，与14亿中国人民对抗。不仅无助于美国解决面临的各种矛盾，还会把这个世界搞乱。
此外，外交部长王毅还就台湾和香港问题发表看法。
王毅表示，台湾问题是中美关系中最重要、最敏感的问题。坚持一个中国原则，反对台独，维护台海地区和平稳定，也符合美国的战略利益。打台湾牌非常危险，是在玩火。两岸实现统一是历史大事。我们愿继续以最大诚意、尽最大努力争取和平统一，同时坚决反对任何形式的台独分裂活动。希望美方切实恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报规定，不向台独分裂势力发出任何错误信号，不要试图挑战和突破中方政策的底线。针对香港问题，王毅表示，无论是去年颁布香港国安法，还是今年修订香港选举办法，都是为了完善一国两制，确保一国两制行稳致远，实现香港长治久安。修订香港选举办法，重在落实爱国者治港这一基本原则。这是邓小平先生在香港回归前就提出来的，是推进一国两制的政治保障。爱国者治理也是世界通行的政治伦理和普遍实践。随着中国中央政府治港政策逐步落实到位，香港实现了由乱及治的重大转折，民主制度和法治环境更趋完善。美方应尊重中国政府为落实一国两制所做的努力。
在此次视频交流会上，王毅也就涉疆问题阐明立场。他表示，涉疆问题不是人权、民族、宗教问题，而是反暴恐、反分裂、反极端主义问题。针对前些年新疆地区严峻的暴恐形势，中国政府依法打击暴力恐怖活动，并采取了一系列去极端化举措，取得了积极成效。新疆已连续4年多未发生暴恐案件，各族群众安居乐业。所谓种族灭绝、强迫劳动，是出于政治目的的捏造的弥天大谎。美国在反恐战争时期将中国视为伙伴，双方一致将东伊运列入恐怖主义组织名单，现在却翻脸不认账，声称要把东伊运移出名单。这种双标和随意让国际社会质疑美方还有没有原则。我们欢迎美国朋友实地到访新疆，亲身了解真实的新疆，而不是偏听偏信那些谎言和谣言。
We're in Afghanistan. It has nothing to do with Kabul and state building, nothing to do with fighting the Taliban or proving that we can reconcile with the Taliban. and nothing to do with fighting any terrorist group, is because there are 20 million Uyghurs and they don't like Han Chinese. And if the CIA has to mount an operation using those Uyghurs, well, the CIA would want to destabilize China, and that would be the best way to do it, to foment unrest and to join with those Uyghurs in pushing the Han Chinese and Beijing from internal places rather than external.
My name is Hussein Askari. I was born in Baghdad, but my parents came from southern Iraq. You don't go around bombing and killing people like the United States, Britain, and NATO does. In 17 years under American rule, Iraq still doesn't have electricity for all the people. We don't have clean water. Hong Kong, it's very obvious that the United States had a very clear hand in intervening on that. In Arabic, the definition of idiot is a person who tries to help you, but he ends up hurting you. The violence we have seen in Hong Kong is completely unacceptable because what it shows is that those people don't really have any intention of having democracy. ISIS is coming from the same regime change policy. It was an international terrorist creation who were financed and trained by United States intelligence. It was natural for Iraq and other countries who themselves were victims of this kind of operations to support China. China is doing something not by sending troops and bombing Pakistan and Afghanistan, but by developing those nations. The Iraqi people see that working with China, become part of the Belt and Road, is the way out of the tunnel. After President Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative, we published this report. It covers every part of the world because our idea is not just to connect Europe and Asia, but to connect all the continents, including the Americas. We call it the World Land Bridge. And I translated that into Arabic. I expanded the chapters on the Arab world. In 2017, I wrote this book. We call it Extending the New Silk Road to West Asia and Africa. I'm 50 years old. When I started, I was 25 years old. So I have spent half of my life working and lobbying for the New Silk Road. The irony was we wanted Europe and the United States to launch this project, but Europe and the United States were busy with wars and regime change and creating financial bubbles. Announced the Belt and Road in 2013. China took the leadership and we were very happy for that development. And since then, we have been actively working on this. I participated in establishing the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden in order to inform people about the objective facts about the Belt and Road and the Chinese policy, because there's enormous amount of disinformation and lies in the media about the Belt and Road, that this is an imperialist project by China to take over the world, which is not true. Anybody who knows China's history and world history can realize that this is completely nonsense. Hong Kong, it's very obvious that the United States had a very clear hand in intervening on that. The violence we have seen in Hong Kong is completely unacceptable because what it shows is that those people don't really have any intention of having democracy. ISIS is coming from the same regime change policy. It was an international terrorist creation, like Al-Qaeda originated from the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, who were financed and trained by United States intelligence, the British intelligence, and with money from Saudi Arabia. And then it was turned into a global force. Interestingly, Trump's own national security advisor, Michael Flynn, who was sent to prison, he exposed the fact that it was under the Obama administration that ISIS was armed and supported by U.S. and other intelligence organizations. But the level of violence, of course, and destruction which ISIS created is much, much bigger than anything we have seen anywhere else.
We're in Afghanistan. It has nothing to do with Kabul and state building, nothing to do with fighting the Taliban or proving that we can reconcile with the Taliban, and nothing to do with fighting any terrorist group. Is because there are 20 million Uyghurs and they don't like Han Chinese. And if the CIA has to mount an operation using those Uyghurs, well, the CIA would want to destabilize China, and that would be the best way to do it, to foment unrest and to join with those Uyghurs in pushing the Han Chinese and Beijing from internal places rather than external.
The way China dealt with the Hong Kong situation is very unique because it acted within the framework of being a sovereign nation, protecting its sovereignty, the security and peace of its people. It was natural for Iraq and other countries who themselves were victims of this kind of operations to support China. Remember that the United Nations Charter guarantees nations the rights to establish peace and security inside within their countries, and that they're independent and sovereign with their internal matters unless they become a threat to international peace. These are the principles of the United Nations which China acted upon and Iraq and other Arab countries supported. The same goes to the situation in Xinjiang. Almost all Muslim countries supported China's policy to stabilize the province by eliminating extremism through education and giving people the ability to learn how to perform a job and have a prosperous life. We call it strategic defense. You stabilize your own country through economic development of the population. You don't go around bombing and killing people like the United States, Britain, and NATO does, because what you do by that, especially when you go and bomb wedding parties and funerals where you kill more children and women than fighters, you will give rise to more people wanting to fight you and kill you. That's why the war in Afghanistan never ended. China did the right thing at home. China is doing something to secure its borders, not by sending troops and bombing Pakistan and Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, but by developing those nations, by building economic relations, building infrastructure as the China-Pakistan economic corridor. This is the best way China can protect itself, by creating a buffer zone around it of economic prosperity and stability. That's a very, very smart and intelligent way of dealing with things. And that's why the Arab and Muslim countries, including Iraq, supported China's policy in Xinjiang. It was not like just a political statement, okay, I'm with you, I'm with these guys. People see that the policy itself is correct. Shows how stupid Mike Pompeo was, because in the last week before he left, he imposed sanctions on cotton imports and textile imports from Xinjiang, which means you're gonna impoverish the Uyghur people. You are doing the opposite of what you're supposed to do. This reminds me of Don Quixote. He tried to help people, but he ended up hurting them because he's such a reckless person. In Arabic, the definition of idiot is a person who tries to help you, but he ends up hurting. Empires can survive for a while, but then they become self-destructive and people will turn against them. As China experienced 100 years of humiliation and invasions, Iraq is in a similar situation. Still, Iraq today is a semi-occupied country.
Today, we're very, very honored to have a very special guest of us. He is Mr. Thor Vestby, who is a former MP and mayor in Norway. And he's also currently the chairman of the IKI Foundation, which is in charge of the Belt and Road Initiative. Let us ask Mr. Vestby to introduce himself to our audience.
Thank you for having me. It is really a pleasure for me to talk to you about this subject that I've been very interested in and involved in the last 5 years. I have been born and raised just after World War II in the West. We have been very, very much influenced by the Americans. Everything is a part of my culture. When you are coming into position like a mayor and even a member of parliament, you are partly a bit of that system. A lot of countries in Europe and also extensive travel around China for 5 years, 30 travels and working in China, and also the countries in between in Eurasia. So I feel that I am now in a position that I have a good understanding of the system I'm born and raised in, and I also have a good understanding of the systems the other side. What we have seen the last 2 years is terrible, shouldn't happen. It's outrageous. Imagine if such a thing had happened in any other city in the world almost, or in Europe. It was a disaster. How is it possible to take down a city like that? It was appalling to watch. The press in Norway, like the press in the other European countries, are very much influenced by America and the UK. The biggest Norwegian publisher is owned up to 37% by American companies. They have to tell the story that is influenced by the Americans. They are having a grip on the Western media. The story goes like they are fighting for democracy and they are demonizing China. I feel this is extremely unfair. It's not right. If you look at the democracy in the US, how it has been displayed, especially the last 3 months, what kind of democracy is that? I am not the only one that are questioning the democracy now. We've seen democracies that are really not democracies. It's just the name they put on things. As a matter of fact, I am quite informed by Nobel Peace Prize. Ever since the beginning, the nominations has been not according to Alfred Nobel's will. There is a book published in Norway recently. It's called Back of the Medal. And this man, Mr. Heffermehl, he is fighting for the Nobel Peace Prize Committee that was given to Norway by Sweden to give the prize according to his will. And he now proves that has almost never been done. Alfred Nobel, he said that the prize should be given to people who have done great benefit for mankind, the brotherhood of nations, for peace champions and for disarmament. Some exceptions, of course, but mainly they have not followed the will. He has actually come up with 2 persons to be in the Nobel Peace Committee. I was surprised by he also nominated me to be in that committee. That will never happen though. The parliament who are nominating the people to that committee, they are silent. They don't want to talk about it. And it's been like that since 1897. I'm not quite happy with that. I hope that they someday will follow Alfred Nobel's will to give it to people who go for brotherhood between nations, peace champions, and disarmament. I would say a clear no to that. They have by no means done that. And that is not according to any positive behavior to give the Peace Prize to those. They were nominated this year. I was so relieved that they didn't get it because then we would have been in great trouble again. I have not studied the law. But as a starting point, Hong Kong is Chinese. I think Beijing, China has taken it very easy to get control over their land for the security of the people in Hong Kong. They have been acting very wisely, been patient. They are now using the soft power. And now it looks to me that life is coming back to the people who are living there. And the one who don't want to live there, they are free to go. That is the same case in all countries. This is a good topic. I would like to add that we also have a bad history about how we have handled the Dalai Lama thing. When we were let out by China from the we call the freezing box, after 7 years of diplomatic freeze, we signed a paper that we shall not interfere in the internal matters in China. That is in written. We mostly stick to that. There are some exceptions, have this freedom of speech, so people are forgetting that from time to time. But overall, we are quite pragmatic to our relation to China. China is a huge business partner. We are buying a lot, and you are buying a lot from us. So we want to keep that going. And at the same time, there are issues that we want to discuss, and we discuss them in a normal diplomatic manner, without interfering, but officially by the foreign ministry to address them. Just address them and not banning and being very harsh on that. Having said that, I also think it's terrible to see how a country, I'm talking about America, how they have threatened and pushed their friends come together to crack down a company like Huawei. Huawei has almost all of the patents on 5G. The Americans have 0. So they are using the old Western aristocratic ignorance and arrogance to try to take down a competitor company in another country. I feel so sorry to be a Westerner and to be a part of that system who are acting like that, because this is really not fair. But actually, this is how the West has been acting for the last 500 years. And I'm not so proud of that. So I think it's also important to understand that a lot of countries in the West are under the umbrella of the Americans. So maybe they want to do differently, but they are pushed to do so. There might be a change now in the new administration, but I think it will have a slow start because the demonizing of China has been going on for so many years now. Biden, it will be political suicide for him if he immediately goes positive to China. He has to stay a little bit in the same direction, but I think over time this has a potential of getting better because the best solution to things is that you cooperate, not fight. I was in China first time in 2000. I had a tour around for 2 weeks. I really then got the interest because I saw what was going on. I saw the potential. The last 5 years, I have been experiencing that myself by going there, by seeing the development. When I came back after 3 months, there was a change. I could feel the change. People are happy, they are hardworking, and they look forward for a better future. And they put the nation first, not themselves first. I feel the innovation drive that is in the people. That's going to take you to new heights in the future. That is what I think that the Americans are afraid of. As long as somebody just copy things, it's no problem. But when they start to innovate, then we might get in problems. I see visions and I see spirit that we don't have in the West. I don't really like the talk about if America will go to war and we all go down. And I don't think that the Americans will do. And that is based on mainly the fact that I think they now have learned a lesson after the invasion of Iraq in 2003. If you look at the world, how it changed in the West, especially with the migrants and all the killings and all the terror that has come after 2003, how many trillions they have spent on this. I don't think they will ever do that again. I think they will try to make some small problems in the South China Sea, Taiwan, but just small things. I think the people now know that this is not a way of ruling the world. It will be quite interesting to see how America now is trying to heal their wounds of disaster, war on terror. The fact is that the Chinese has handled that much better. You did something after the attack in Urumqi in 2014. I have been up there. I went there. I go free all around in China. No problem. That is not what the Western press is telling, but I do it. I experienced it myself to see the happy people. You stopped the terrorism up there by teaching the people what is good or bad. And that is the same in the West. War on terror that has been run by the Americans is just terrible. You see, the result is the opposite. I can be attacked at any time in my safe country or in Europe. But that is not the case in China. You had these few suicide bombers in Urumqi in 2014, hardly nothing after that. We have it all the time. We should look to China, how to handle it. No one is born a terrorist. I think we are in a way, but not quite officially. And that again is based on we are probably not allowed it by the Americans to do so. But up in the high north, there has been doing a very good job in preparing for the Arctic Silk Road. There's not so much ice up there in winter, not even in summer. So the goods and the ships and the containers from China can have the northern route be landed in the northern part of Norway. So there are plans for making a huge harbor. There are plans for linking up to the Finnish railroad system. It's not many kilometers that is missing. So then all the goods can come in from the north and down to Europe. It is challenging both the Americans and the Russians if you're talking about the security policy. But if you put the business ahead of the security policy, I think it's a very good initiative. Right now, we are in a position that we cannot sign an MOU for the Belt and Road Initiative, but we are, in a way, acting like we are having one.
Norway is currently not a member of the European Union, but is part of the Schengen area. Given the rise of populism, including the occurrence of Brexit, do you think that Norway will ever join the EU in the future? Is EU accession beneficial or harmful to a country?
Norway has been split in 2 times. We had an election in 72 and an election in 94, and it was a very small margin that we said no to enter the EU. Now we have good cooperation, meaning that we are the country number 1 acting like what they decide in Brussels. We implement everything immediately, not the other countries, but we are not by the negotiation table. And we have a quite good deal because the price for being that kind of member is about 6 billion a year, and we export for 100 billion. So it's a fairly good deal. If we talk about the future, I think we will stay like that. We will not go out and we will not get in.
The COVID-19 pandemic obviously has caused great harm in many countries, especially in the Western world, including Norway. So how is the situation like in your country? And given the economic downturn, how do you see the future of Norway in the next few years?
Very good question, very interesting. I just saw the figure that last year we are going down 2.5%, while China is gaining 4%. Other countries are going more down. We are in a very good position economically. We have the biggest fund there is in the world because of the oil that we are producing. So we are pouring in money into both families and companies so they can keep on going. We will come through this like we did in the economic crisis in 2008 in a very good way. And we are also handling the pandemic quite well. For example, the UK, they have more than 1,700 deaths per million. We are having around 100, and China is having 3. Why these differences in the death rate of the pandemic? It is not about what kind of governance there is, because China and South Korea, Japan, Thailand are doing good, and there are differences in Europe, even if we're all democracies. It seems like it is about the trust in the governance. If you trust your government and let them decide what to do and don't argue that, do it. These countries are doing it the best way. You also see that the only thing that works is a lockdown. Get rid of it. No discussion. That is easier in China. You have the best confidence in the government there is in the world. In a new report from America, the Edelman report, it's gained from 78 to 85% of the Chinese people are trusting the government. That is an enormous force and benefit. Even we in Norway, we have a trust in our government and the handling of the pandemic. So I'm quite happy with that.